citizens. And this place, and we have to see it forward. And I just want to welcome everybody here today. And if you get a chance to come back and look at all the programs that this thing offered. And thank you, Selena and your staff for helping me put together this. Thank you.
Ms. Mellows, could you say that again for here? Yes, please.
Just wanted to welcome everybody to the Logan Heights Library. Want to welcome everybody here tonight to the Logan Heights Library. I want to thank Alina and her staff for organizing this meeting as well. I just want to let you know a little bit of the background of the library. There is the old Logan Heights Library down the street. Hopefully it can be a model or exactly what they're going to do for library coming up. My mother was the president of the old Logan Heights Library for more than 10 years, and I volunteered in hours there as well. For the library, of wonderful books and programs that this library has. So welcome everybody.
Thank you for Mrs. Morales. I'm Library Sisters of Community, and to be the first community to host this event again. The big part of this coming to this community first is some concerns that were brought to our attention regarding community relations, and we wanted to be able to have a conversation between the police department and community members around any issues or concerns that are presently occurring within the community. And so we were informed that the community was feeling intimidated places and moments from being able to engage with the police department. And we thought that our presence here and the presence of members and representatives of the police department would speak to our investment in creating safe spaces for engagement. Ms. Mullins, is there anything additional you'd like to say about that?
So being part of this community for many years, I've seen it go from coming out of the house and seeing drug use, seeing prostitution, seeing people dead online. I have witnessed many things that probably a person shouldn't witness, and that's why what I try to do is make my community safe for everybody, little kids to senior citizens. And I've seen recently that the crime in this area is getting worse. I can see as a community member, I did receive emails, texts, and phone calls from people in this community coming from even down the street here where we have raped and somebody who was on the call and interviewed a widow and did some very bad thing. I'm very concerned what is going on in this community, and I feel that our community needs to speak up a little bit and get involved and make our community safe. I feel like we were on a really good role in becoming safer every day. Pandemic hit. There's a lot of really bad things going on. I get texts from people who are afraid to even get on the phone and they prefer to walk downtown, but then they're walking past people and individuals with issues that are very difficult to explain as well. And I just want to see my community become a better place. I want little kids walking to the library built a couple years ago at Gastown. They can't do that anymore because they're walking in their tents. They're walking in the middle of the street. I want my neighbors able to walk in their community without having somebody walk up to them. I want my community to be safe. I don't want the kids that play at Memorial Park to feel safe and proud of their home. If they don't feel safe. I had a post video of a dirty park, drunk people doing really bad things in the park. Okay, this is not a place for anyone to do that. And luckily, when they had staff, they came out and spoke to me and walked the park. They started improving a little bit, but it's not just one person. There needs to be more people focusing on that. And I just really, if things don't start getting better now, we're going back, going forward. And things were getting so much better, and now they're going back. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think that and work on things. We know the police have had some community meetings that were put together, and a lot of community members were going to attend those meetings, and at the last minute they were canceled. And that was our chance to communicate together with our law enforcement. But due to individuals who are not for that, so they came in and basically disrupted our meeting that certain people wanted to have. We wanted to look at, of course, nothing has ever been perfect. There's been things on both sides. But we need to get past that, and we need to start working together. We need to start understanding each other. Because it's not going anywhere. Like it's a waste of time. We need to start working together, understanding each other, not coming in and add. No, let's just sit down, talk, and listen to each other. We're all human beings. We can make this work. It just takes working, kind of how to make it work. How to make it work. So I think we can make it work. We just need more community involvement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smiles, for your remarks regarding the current state of community and police relations in District 8 and the Logan our Logan community in particular. And I was wondering, since we have Executive Chief McGrath with us this evening, if he could talk to us a little bit about what the current strategies are that are in place for addressing these community-based concerns, and how are we fostering increased engagement and increased efforts around public safety in District 8 and in the Mario Logan communities.
Oh, good evening, everybody. I'm having a hard time on speakers with the microphone, so if somebody can repeat the question, I'd be glad to answer it.
Can you hear okay, Chief?
I can hear you
Is this
fine.
better?
Microphones used, there's a lot of feedback.
Okay. That's probably because we need to turn the sound down on the speaker. That's all. 1, 2. Turn the sound down, Chief.
Chief, were you able to hear my question?
I did not hear the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll restate it. Thank you. So basically, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the current strategies that are being employed around police and community relations in District 8 and in the Barrio community in particular, and kind of what's historically been in place, what we're currently doing, and what we may have vision towards doing in the future.
I'm very sorry. I didn't hear any of that. If somebody can repeat that at the computer, I can hear that.
Can you hear me now?
That's a lot better.
Okay, so sorry. We thought that the mics would work. But essentially my question was, can you talk to us a little bit about the historic relationship between community and the police department in District 8 and in the Barrio Logan area in particular. And then specifically about kind of what strategies are being employed currently and looking to be implemented in the future in order to increase engagement with the community and improve the community's sense of public safety.
Sure, I'll try to answer to that question. I've worked several times down in the South Bay area, and one of the things that I will tell you traditionally is that we don't get a lot of involvement in most cases with the Hispanic community. And I think that just kind of goes to a lot of the distrust that the residents of that area may have. And I don't necessarily think it's because of the San Diego PD. I think it's sometimes that it's the uniform and it's the authority and it's the fact that they would, in my opinion, most of them just want to be left alone and work and not be at meetings or at different events where the police are there. And I think it's been that way traditionally. So one of the things that we really try to do when we staff the South Bay and the Barrio Logan areas is we really try to get people who I can identify with the people that we're actually serving. So we have a lot of bilingual leaders, to include our captains, our lieutenants, and even our CRO, making sure that we're constantly doing outreach and inviting them to our captain's advisory boards. We're inviting them to our special events that we have at the divisions. We're inviting them to community events where the police are very much involved in trying to give as much information as we can about what our role is in the community, and also into inviting them to be more part of the leadership. When I say that, I mean, in a sense that we're inviting anybody and anyone who wants to come to those divisions and be a part of a conversation. And we're finding in particularly in the South Bay region and Barrio Logan, a lot of people really don't want to have those conversations for whatever reasons. Although I will say that with our efforts and with the efforts of some really great leadership in District 8 and Barrio Logan, particularly the business owners down there, we're starting to get more of a foothold in having more conversations and getting more people engaged. And so I would say the way that it's changed is we're getting more leaders in the business community who are stepping forward and saying, we can help and we'll be at these meetings and we'll try to also echo your message. So I think those are some very important ways that we've been able to do better in the communities. We're involving more and more people and encouraging more and more people to include the young people. There's quite a few youth organizations down in the South Bay area. And with our school task force and people that are part of that juvenile task force commitment, they do reach out to the younger generation, trying to establish that conversation early, and so we can have that trust.
All right, thank you for that, Chief. My question is this. I know that the police department has community relations officers in each district, I believe, that are really tasked with building and fostering relationship with the community. And, it has been brought to our attention that, the business owners and the entrepreneurs in the community do want that increased engagement. And I believe that there's probably a healthy subset of the community that wants that engagement as well. And I'm wondering how SDPD is currently researching similar dynamics in other cities. I mean, as we know, one of the fastest growing demographics in our nation is the Latinx population. And so I think it's very important that SDPD, as a city who is on the forefront of that population boom, have really concrete strategies for engaging with the Latinx community and immigrant communities. And I'm wondering what intentional action is being taken on part of SDPD to be at the forefront of creating new community-based strategies while also researching best practices related to engaging with minority and immigrant communities?
Sure, and great question, and thank you for that. Just just kind of a byproduct of the CROs is the engagement that we have with the business associations, not only in downtown Pacific Beach, North Park, but also Barrio Logan, and some of the other newer entrepreneurial areas, North South Park. We do engage with associations. We have conversations with them, and we get a lot of great ideas as to continue to engage with the community. But over the 34 plus years that I've been doing this job, I know that engagement had always been something that we've always tried to be good at. And we've tried different strategies. We looked at other models for different cities. And quite honestly, San Diego's CRO model and our model of engagement with our captains at our divisions and their advisory boards and the commitment to, looking at some of the strategies they've been asking us to do really is paramount. We've done great in those areas. I think where we really need to have some help in that area, if you're asking me where we can, do a little bit better and getting that engagement, is really to ask the assistance of some of the community members out there who are vested in their community, really want to see their communities thrive, is to help us and come work by our sides. I think that there's a tendency to kind of, be at an arm's distance and watch the police and encourage us from a distance, but really having community members feeling comfortable getting more involved with us is something that we need to ask more of. And how we do that, I think, is a conversation, again, between those community members and how much they're willing to engage and how much they're willing to give and assist. But ultimately, people look to the police department to make those changes and to make things that they want happen. And a lot of times it really has to be a partnership, and we can only do so much. But we do look outside of our department. Quite a few of our folks internally, whether they're a divisional lieutenant who have an area responsibility, if they're calling up North and Northern California or Central California, even being engaged in going to different seminars and conferences in the Southwestern United States, trying to figure out what we can do better. That's what we're doing. And so far, I think San Diego, we're not the best. We would never say we're the best. We think we're really good, but we know we can improve. And so, our commitment has always been to the community that we're going to try to find those ways to continue to engage and be better at engagement. But I think if you're taking a look at, the best practice, is to continue to get those people who really want to be involved with police and really want to help us send our message and encourage us and encourage the community to work together. That's where we could use some help.
Okay, Chief, I've got Commissioner Sandoval who has a question or a remark she would like to make.
Sure.
She's going to come toward the laptop so that you can better hear her.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, and I guess I could also ask both of you, Adriana, as well. Christ the King is in this district, correct? So, as part of SDOP myself, SDOP, I recall he used to have community action meetings with the police at the various churches. Has there been any more efforts on that? That maybe we could reach out to nonprofits?
I know that the captains individually have been meeting with the communities in different locations, but what you're talking about, I think, we haven't gotten the invitations to do some of those. We have been kind of reaching out, asking if that's something we should start doing now that COVID's kind of been lifted and people are expecting us to be out there more and more. So that's a great suggestion. I'll bring that to the chief tomorrow and figure something out and report back to you.
Because I know that's an area that that nonprofit in particular is working towards and building those relationships to bring in safer communities. And so that would be an avenue that maybe if you reach out to that church and the local LLCs, what we call it, the local organization planning group, that may be a productive way to have local community members working with you to resolving that concern.
Yes, that's a great suggestion. I'll talk with the chief about it tomorrow and we'll see if we can come up with something. Thank you.
Chief, this is the jarhead over here. Hey, how are you, sir? One of the reasons why I kind of chimed in was one of the things that we used to do probably about 4 or 5 years ago is Better Block, where law enforcement would get together with the churches that have been mentioned from whatever churches are in synagogues or mosques or in a certain area. We would bring them together and we would schedule a block party. We'd let the churches kind of lead it along with the help from STPD. And we've had at one time more than 3,000 people that have come to one of those block parties. I also remember that STPD gave out 1,100 turkeys. It's too late to do that, but Christmas is coming up and I would like a ham. But no, just joking. But I think that one of the reasons, and I was listening to Ms. Mellows and we had conversation, of course, with our chair, is that people are afraid. When we're talking about Barrio Logan and over by Chicano Park, I remember being at a meeting and having a discussion with SDPD, both Pastor Sandoval and I, about folks being afraid because there are people in the park that don't want to allow for people to use the park if they're not living in this neighborhood, as well as they didn't want the police department to police the park. And so my question is, how do we overcome that? And has there been an increase in monitoring the parks that are here? Because as Ms. Mello talked about, there were drug needles and everything else. And this place here in the 8th district is very important to me because I grew up in this area. Not too far from here on Z Street, as a matter of fact, right next to St. Jude's. And so again, I would come down here to the Boys and Girls Club and actually swim in the pool that they had there at some point or another. And so is there something that we can do together as CAB and also as SDPD, as also with the business owners and the other partners in this neighborhood to include the religious institutions, that we can in fact all work together and maybe you or CAB can organize that block party for sometime in the first quarter of next year, depending on sponsorship. So I just want to put that back in your wheelhouse.
Yep. So you're absolutely right. Over the last 2-3 years, we've really had a hard time going down to Chicano Park. Our patrol officers down there, as they're driving through, responding to calls, they get pelted with bottles and rocks, and they get threatened in the park when they get down there to, take care of a radio call or something like that. And you're also right. The people who live down there are definitely afraid. They'll call police anonymously because they don't want anybody to know that they called the police. We have business owners, particularly one instance, we had a veterans organization that was vandalized because they were perceived as being pro-police. And so it's been very difficult for the community members down there to really, as you say, be able to stroll through their park and enjoy what is theirs when they've got a small group of people who are just really absolutely taking that park and not made it a safe place for people to go. So the easy answer would be for us to go down there and, ticket people for parking illegally, go down there and be proactive in our enforcement and try to get a handle on what's going on down there. We do that to a certain extent. Basically, it's complaint-based right now. But what we really need is when we do that, is we really need community members and business organizations and people who are attached to that neighborhood, say, we want our neighborhood back and we support the police. Many times, and I'll be honest with you, many times we've taken some enforcement action down there and we've gotten some very negative pushback from people who didn't appreciate us down there doing what we were doing. And so we get kind of a double message. One message is we want our park clean and safe and our kids can play in it. The next message we get is you guys didn't need to come down here and arrest people for drinking in the park. You didn't need to arrest them for dealing drugs in the park. So maybe just having a very honest conversation about where that park can be if we all work together in trying to solve these issues. And I think that's probably the most honest way I can put it. is that if we want, a safe park, we all have to work towards that goal, and we have to be very supportive of what we want. But that means that we have to work together in figuring out what those goals are and how we're going to accomplish them.
Thank you for that, Chief. Has there been an increase in crime in this area? And if so, what types of crimes are we looking at? I'm sorry if I missed you saying that already.
No, that's okay. So I think that what we're seeing now is we're seeing a rise in our carjackings. We're seeing a rise in our robberies. We're seeing a rise in our retail theft. And that's just something that's been going on for the last couple of years. Last couple of months. Of course, now with the holiday season coming into play, we have the malls that we have to worry about. And obviously everybody is seeing what's going on around the country with the smash and grabs. And so we've been doing a lot of proactive, what we call D runs, which are where we'll kind of once an hour, we'll drive around the mall just to take a look and see what's going on, or if we see an increase in an activity somewhere, whether it's down at Las Americas or whether it's at the Mission Valley malls. Then we start stationing officers out there to kind of monitor what's going on and be a police presence. We also have some resources that we're going to start using over there, particularly the Nighthawk Towers, which is just everybody sees them, those tall towers that sit in the parking lot. But this is traditionally kind of a time to really kind of just answer your question, where our retail theft and our robberies are going to be because of the holiday season. People are shopping, people are carrying on packages, people are leaving packages in their cars and leaving their vehicles unsecured. So that's what we're seeing.
Thank you, sir.
One question that I have, I know that we have the Chicano Park Steering Committee, and many of those elders are very much respected, and maybe you could speak on that too, Adriana. Has there been an effort to collaborate with them for the safety, not just of the park, but I think that by having their collaboration, and maybe if they say, no, we don't need police presence, but if we get training, specific training to have them do a lot of that community policing that we've been discussing, having that collaboration, so maybe they can collaborate and see how they can create a action plan to be able to keep the community safe. Has there been any efforts at all in reaching out to that committee in particular?
Yes. So Captain Dan Grubbs, when he was there at Central Division, he was there when we really kind of saw an increased uptick in crime and problems in the park. And he had reached out several times to the informal community leaders, and had meetings at the division talking specifically about what they were seeing, what we could do to help them. And I think that all their ideas were pretty much, consistent and the same, right? We just want crime to go away. We want to use our park. But I think when the question is asked, and this goes back to my point of safety for them too, right? The question is asked, are you willing to get up in front with us as a representative of the community and say enough is enough, we need to bring the park back? And I think that's where they get a little, there's some anticipation there, and I can totally understand that. And so, with Captain Peterson then taking over with Captain Grubbs, he does the same thing as far as outreach. He's reaching out to those leaders that have traditionally been very good about meeting with us and about having honest conversations. But I think what it really comes down to, again, is, they have to feel safe when they come out in front and say this is wrong, right? And the police can stand them at the press conference. The police can stand there with them when they're in the park at the time, and everybody's patting each other on the back and saying, hey, we're all in this together, right? But when we leave, that's when they feel the most vulnerable, and that's when they need the most support. And that's when we need the people who are the other informal leaders, right? Not so much the elders, but the other people who are willing to stand up and say, I support my community. I support the elders. Enough is enough too, right? It's, there's a lot of support in numbers. I feel sorry. There's a few people there. I'm not going to name who they are, of course, but there's a few people there that, like yourself, care very, very much about that community. And I think sometimes they could use a little help and maybe a little bit more advocacy and more people speaking out and having an opinion about what's happening that's not wearing a blue uniform would really help.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief, for engaging us, because we're going to continue to revisit this issue. We know that it's not going to be quickly resolved, and that relationships have to be, built and then fostered and maintained. And we're likely to take a break, a hiatus here in December, but we will be revisiting this topic in January and on an ongoing basis so that we can look at how we're improving the relationship between the community and the police in this district in particular, but in other areas where concerns emerge. And I would love to have you bring along with you the captain for this district, so that he can speak to the issues, as well as the community relations officer that is working with this community. And we will try to do our part to bring community members to the table so that we can have a face-to-face conversation. But just want you to know that we're not going to be letting this go, because we realize that all communities, regardless of what kinds of financial resources they bring to the table and what kind of income they generate for the city, are entitled to a sense of safety and a sense of community. And Logan Heights is really an emerging community. It's a long-standing community with a great history and tradition in our city and cultural contributions. And we see business emerging here. We see real estate growth here. And we want to make sure that that development isn't hindered by public safety concerns, and that community members feel safe to make full use of their community the same way that others in other communities do. So we want to hold all parties accountable for bringing fresh energy and attention and sustained engagement around this issue.
Thank you. Well, you have our commitment.
All right, so like I said, we're going to come back to this in January, and I would love for you to have the captain here and the community relations officer to be a part of the conversation.
Yep, I'd love to bring. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to now move to the SDPD department report for this month. If you could share with us whatever you brought to discuss with us, we invite you to do so at this time.
Sure, I think some of that had to do with the rise of some of our crime, and particularly with the statistics, but I'll kind of start with what everybody asks for in most meetings that I have, and that's with the staffing. So our staffing right now, we're budgeted for 2,036 police officers, and we are as of today, I got the final numbers, was about 1,839 officers. So it's roughly about 197 vacant. However, if you take into account the 162 inactive officers that we have because they're either on military leave or industrial or medical leave, or they're on light duty, they're unavailable for patrol for whatever reasons, that number goes down to about 1,677. So we are at this point, not doing as well as we did last month, and we're hopefully not anticipating that we're going to continue to go on a downward trend. We do have some academies that are going through right now, and we have 35 that are scheduled to graduate here in about 2 months, and then we're going to be on Friday. We're going to be talking to 44 that are going to be going into our next academy. And so we're looking at right around 70. We're hoping that we're going to be able to graduate next 6 months. I want to talk a little bit about the civilian side too, because communications is also one of those questions that I get asked all the time. Why am I having to wait so long on the non-emergency line? And the reason is because we're scheduled to have, or budgeted to have 142 dispatchers, and right now we're at about 105 actual. So we have 37 vacancies, but we're always recruiting on both sides, sworn and civilian, trying to get our numbers up to where they need to be. If you take a look at the national 9/11, the national average what they say you should be answering 9/11 calls and is about 10 seconds. Right, we're right at 6 seconds, and we've done better in the past. But 6 seconds is for people who are calling 911 is still too long, but it's a lot better than the 10 seconds that's the national average. So we are adjusting our staffing to make sure that our 911 dispatch is being answered in a timely manner. And the other calls, the ones that are non-emergency, we are trying to adjust the way that we do that. And I'm actually getting a report tomorrow from our communications chief. And so I'll have a better idea of what our plan is going forward, assist with reducing the times for the 9/11. I'm sorry, for the non-emergency calls. With our recruitment, one of the things that we do as a recruiting unit, and we've been able to secure a lot more funding in this year's budget to be able to recruit, is we're going out to several places in California, Southwest United States, and even as far as Florida and the Midwest, and recruiting from some of the colleges, trying to find those folks that are being willing to come out and be police officers out here in San Diego. And unfortunately, that is what we have to do because everybody else in the country is doing the same thing. And we have to be competitive. Still have the incentive that we're giving laterals, those people who have been police officers in other cities coming to our department, giving them $15,000 over a set number of years. And I think this fiscal year, July 1st, I think it's like 4 or 5 that we've been able to hire off from other agencies. And we've gotten a couple back that have left, went to other agencies, but have come back and we've reinstated them. So, we were hoping that those numbers are going to be a little bit better, but all we can do is continue to do what everybody else is doing and, engaging in a media plan and trying very hard to reach out to people in other states as well. I really, besides the crime stuff, that's really all I have. I know that somebody asked me last time about the hate crime statistics, and I wanted to kind of just brief you on those. So in 2022, right now, year to date, we're about 3% down than what we were last year. The only thing that's trending up is the anti-transgender hate crimes that we've investigated. We investigated 6 so far in 2022, and we had 0 in 2021. Everything else is a negative number, with the exception of, I take that back, with the exception of Hispanic hate crime. It was 5 so far, and this time last year it was 3. So that's an increase, but everything else is down. Asian, Black, White, Indian, Middle Eastern, religious reasons, and for sexual orientation is down 50%. So with the exception of transgender and slight increase with Hispanic, the hate crime statistics overall, we're down 3%.
Is that the conclusion of your report, Chief?
Conclusion of my report. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay. I have a question, and we're also going to take some other questions from other board members and our executive director as well. Thank you for that report, first of all. And something that came to mind for me is you were speaking about recruitment and current staffing, and you were talking about lateral transfers as a part of your recruitment strategy. And I'm just wondering, what are your policies for lateral transfers for officers who have potential multiple disciplinary actions within other police forces where they've served? How does that factor into an approval of a lateral transfer?
Sure. So they have to go through a background. They just don't come to our department off the street. Let's say if they were working in a allied agency here in the county and they decide to come to San Diego, we don't just say because you're wearing a uniform in a different city that you can wear a uniform in our city. So quite frequently, what happens is we first have them do a preliminary investigation packet where they fill everything out. They have to do a background. They have to do a polygraph. They get interviewed, and then ultimately what happens is when we, ultimately, find out, what their work history has been, then I can tell you that it's been our policy that we don't pick those folks up.
So if a person, say, had 3 community-based reports for excessive use of force, would that preclude them from being hired in a lateral transfer capacity to SDPD?
I can't, if you're speaking to a specific case, I don't know
No,
if
it's not a specific case at all, sir. It's just a hypothetical.
Okay, yeah. So it doesn't even have to be 3. It could be 1. I mean, it can just, it's the severity of the excessive force. I mean, if there's a report that the person says, look, I mean, I was engaged in an altercation with somebody. I was found to have used excessive force, and here's the reasons why. It doesn't take 3. It could just be 1, and we can just choose not to move forward with that candidate. It's really just, it's our decision. We don't pick people up with discipline problems.
Mhm. So is there hard and fast criteria that becomes the judgment foundation for that, or is it discretionary?
I think it really comes down to the interview, the facts of the person's background, and then we have a captain in backgrounds and recruiting that evaluates that. May speak to our legal team, may speak to their assistant chief, and ultimately it comes up to the CEC, and we will make a decision whether or not we believe that person should be hired by San Diego PD. But if there's that much of a concern, I don't see that candidate being very viable.
Okay, thank you for that response.
I'll preface it. I'll tell you this: I have never personally known of a person who has been hired who has a background of what you talked about, 3 incidents of excessive force, or even 1 serious case of excessive force. I have not personally seen that.
Okay, thank you. Something else, you spoke about a marked increase in violence against trans members within our community as far as hate crimes go. I know as a nation, we're all, aware of the recent violence at the nightclub in Colorado that was inflicted on the LGBT community. We know that San Diego has a significant LGBT community, and I'm wondering what specific strategies SDPD is employing currently to engage in protective measures at an increased rate for our LGBT community members.
Yeah, great question. So what we're doing is we have several units that are going up there and kind of doing a round robin during the busiest times on the weekends. I should preface that with the weekends, when we know it's going to be majority of people up there walking around in the streets, going to the clubs, enjoying the restaurants, doing their shopping. So we have quite a few units that we've designated up there and continuing to do that over probably the last 2 weeks. And then during the day, and we've tasked our captain at Western Division to go ahead and designate staffing to be able to go up there and monitor and in the busiest places up there at Hillcrest, and to get out and walk those streets, engaging the people that are there, the business owners, the pedestrians, the patrons, and just let them know that we're out there and paying attention. And the chief has basically committed to the community up there, and he's had several meetings with them that he is going to be there. We're going to be there, and we're going to continue to engage and talk to them and see where they're at, and if they're feeling safer, if they're feeling like what we're doing is making a difference, and we'll continue to do that. But our job is always, like with any community, is to make sure that when things like this are happening, that we're paying attention and we're there for them and whatever they need. So we've done that. We're going to continue to do that. That's, I mean, I don't think there's an end in sight for that because of the trend that we're seeing. And so we want to make sure that, we're continuing to monitor it.
Thank you. open the floor to other board members who had questions.
Yeah, this is Ellis Clay from, District 7. Hello. I wanted to ask a question about your staffing numbers. You mentioned that, you were talking about staffing. I wanted to know what are the criteria for area staffing, what's your area staffing criteria? Like who goes where for patrol, duty assignments and things like that, and how are those assignments, determined by either the amount of officers being assigned to an area or the types of officers being assigned to an area? And I guess more specifically, are there officers that are assigned to areas near or close to areas that they already reside in, so they have a community connection with those areas? They don't do that? No.
So let me answer the first question. The way that divisions are staffed is it's through a kind of a mathematical equation. It all has to do with calls for service and out of service time. Calls for service are just regular radio calls that officers receive to go to a house or a business or whatever, right? And then the out of service time basically speaks to how long those officers are on that call that they just got dispatched to. So as an example, a call for service would be, hey, somebody's calling in saying that someone is squealing their tires in the intersection and it looks to be an unsafe action. So the officers get down there, they see the car squealing his tires, they pull it over, they talk to the driver. Driver's a young driver, trying to show off in front of some people, tells them, hey, look, get on your way, don't be doing this. You're gonna, the community's upset about what you're doing. And so they're gone. Took them 10 minutes, right? The other thing is the officers get a call of a rape. And then they have to go to the scene. They have to transport the victim to the hospital. They have to search for a suspect. The suspect gets taken into custody. Then he gets a SART exam. They're out of service for 4 to 5 hours. So while they're out of service, we don't have any officers there to answer the radio call. So we take that formula and our operational support unit basically says, look, for this area, and sometimes it just comes down to a beat. For this beat, we need these many officers. For this area, we need this many officers. In most cases, we just tell the divisions, this is how many officers you're going to get based on that equation, and the captain of the division decides where he places those officers in that beat. We used to be, when I was on, you used to have a single beat, you used to work it. Nowadays, I think officers, although they're assigned to beat, you just work an area because that's where we're at with staffing. And second question is, and if you can repeat it, I think it had to do with officers who are committed to a community.
Well, no, what I was trying to get at was, do officers, and I got to shake above the head that this probably the answer is no, but officers that are assigned to areas where they reside, so they have connection to that, they already have a connection to that community. Would that be something that would normally happen under a staffing criteria?
We give the officers a choice to work where they want. So if they've been assigned a division for about a year, and the captain believes that they're ready to move on, if that's what they want to do, he's seen their performance or he's seen her performance, and he really thinks they're good officers and they can move on to a different division, he will support that. If they want to move to a division that they live in, we don't have a problem with that. It's not restrictive, but I think you'll find that most officers don't want to police in the neighborhood that they live in because they got to live there. And that's the concern they might have. They're going to be, stopping their neighbors for things. Then they got to, go to the same store. They might be a little uncomfortable for them.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question.
Okay, I believe Executive Director Brown had a question.
One real quick, Chief, I did do a hour-long webinar on retaining officers and recruitment. And I think we are no different than the national average. I mean, Denver is 168 officers short, and they're 10% of what they needed. Hawaii is 15% short of what they needed. So, right, quick math, you're about 10% of what you're budgeted. Now, what you actually want is 2,200 officers, so you're quite a bit off, but at least from the budgeted amount, you're within, I think, what the national average was. In the webinar, they talk about how the department needs to make officers feel that they are valued and listened to. Part of that is to providing them guidance and opportunities to further their career. I think San Diego PD does that quite well. So I didn't learn a heck of a lot from the webinar, but officers do need to feel that their sergeant and lieutenants are looking out for them and trying to advance their career and make their life better as an officer in order to retain them, to keep them from going to Riverside. So that's what I had.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. You're entirely correct. And, one of the things they teach in the academy, early on in the academy, is for these new recruits, is for them to ask themselves a question every time they come to work. And that is, what are you going to do to make someone's life better that lives in that community? You should be constantly thinking about that. And in the same way, we ask our supervisors to also apply that to our officers. What are you going to do today that's going to support the people that are actually doing the job? And I think that you hit it right on the head when you say that the sergeants and the lieutenants and the command staff and everybody has to kind of make sure that they're feeling appreciated. Not that everybody's going to every day, but your point's well taken. And for when people feel valued, I think that they feel better about coming to work. They feel better about their workplace, and they feel better about the people they're working around and working for and working towards, making their lives a lot better. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Chief, last question again, dealing with recruitment and retention. And I think that you mentioned that we had a little bit over 1,600 folks that are actually working every day. We may have more, but for whatever reason, the attrition rate, or whatever the case may be, what can we do as a citizen advisory board on police and community relations, and a possible proposal to the mayor as it relates to policy, to assist you and the rest of law enforcement to come up to that 2,200? And the question is also, as a city of 1.4, 1.5 million, do we actually have enough officers out there for public safety reasons? Because I know that the numbers might decrease in the evening time. Do we have enough there to do the job?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, we'll never have enough because in order for us to have enough, I would put a police officer in every corner of every street, walking around saying hi to everybody if I could. You said 1.4 to 1.5 million. I think that one of the things we're looking at with a 5-year plan is that number is going to exponentially get larger in San Diego. And budgeted at 2036, and in 4 or 5 years from now, we're still at 2036. I don't know if we're going to be at that magical number, of 1.7, 1.8 per thousand that we'd like to see. But I know that the mayor's office and the council are working very diligently in trying to find creative ways to help us in getting that and making sure that happens. But quite honestly, really what it comes down to is we need to stop the bleeding, right? The cops need to stop leaving, and we need to kind of just be at and just continue to grow our numbers. And so to everybody's point, that's it's our job in the police department to make people feel valuable. It's the community, hopefully, that they're saying hi to the officers and making them feel valued. But it's a combination of a lot of things. The way you could probably help us out is just to continue to be supportive of our police department, can continue to be supportive of a conversation. I think that officers always love to talk, right? But I think the conversation about how can we do our job better is something that we should always be asking ourselves. And for the younger police officers, I think it shows that people care about law enforcement and cares about the way we're doing our business, and allows for them to be able to have a voice as well. Because I think sometimes they don't feel they do. So I just appreciate what the board does, and how you continue to support us as a department.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Chief, for your report this evening. We
Thank
will naturally, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. And obviously, we're gonna want to follow on with you regarding the hate crimes statistics and evaluate whether or not those are continuing to increase. And we will obviously continue to engage with you throughout the year, particularly coming into the new year. One of the things that I want to share with you so that you're aware of it, that we're going to be doing on a monthly basis as a board is spotlighting a different district or community that is being represented by a board member or commissioner here. And so it would be very helpful, and we will make a point of getting you advance notice so that you're aware of it. If you could have the captain and whomever operates in leadership capacity within that district, if possible, join us for that conversation around what are the emergent issues related to community-based policing in that area. We want to make sure that we are really increasing our engagement in a fruitful manner with our police department and our community. So just want to let you know that that's the direction that we'll be going in the new year.
Well, they would love to be there, be very enthusiastic.
All right, and as you know, we're also returning to public meetings. And so we're allowed, if you could have people join us in person, that would be great as well.
You got it.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
My pleasure.
Okay, so at this point in the agenda, we're going to move towards the chair report. And one of the things I want to bring all of our board members' attention to is that there is a state RIPA board meeting tomorrow that can be observed online. So if you have the time in your day, I would encourage you to do so, to see if you can watch the meeting online. So if you go to the state RIPA website, you can look at it there. That meeting, I believe, is at 10 a.m. And then also want to touch bases on what we were just discussing, the kind of rotating schedule for board meetings. And now that we're back in person, we would love to have board members volunteer for a month where they would like to host the meeting in their community. And what that's going to entail is, identifying a community-based site where we can have the meeting. Mrs. Mellows coordinated us having this site in conjunction with Executive Director Brown. And what we would also like for you to do when you do so is contact your council representative's office, ask them if they would like to have some staff present to be a part of the conversation. Contact community groups within your community, ask them to show up, and just neighbors and constituents and stakeholders. Those of us who are here in this capacity representing a particular district in the city should be here in a representative capacity where we're actually in relation with our community that we're serving. I've said to various board members at different times that we are not here to simply represent the people on our block or on our street, but the various constituent groups within our districts. And San Diego is such a diverse city that it's really important that we are truly representing the varied and many voices in our city. So with that being said, because we are going to be on hiatus for the month of December, as our December meeting date would intersect with multiple holidays and observances, is there anyone who is interested in being the host community for our January meeting?
Get far out of I tend not to get far out of the bubble. neighborhood in District 7, so I have to get out more into the outer line communities in District 7 and talk to some of the stakeholders there. And I'll try to do that and I'll have an answer for you. I don't have an answer at the moment, but I am interested in doing that. So it may not be January, but I am definitely interested in hosting
Okay,
at some point. Year.
Really goes from January.
okay. Representative Rabbi Metzer, who is with District 1, has shared with us that he will host for the January meeting. And I believe you have a relationship with your council member, who is a former member of this board. And so we would love to have Representative LaCava or someone from his office join you, and that would be fabulous, as well as any other community groups and community members from your community join us for our January meeting. We look forward to that. And any support that you need in securing a facility, Executive Director Brown can support you in that. Sometimes with getting the city facilities, you might need some support, and tech accommodations, things of that nature. So please reach out to us and let us know as early as you can what support you'll need, so that we can make sure that we have everything aligned and in place for you for January. All right. Something else I would like for us to revisit is we talked about having a retreat at some point and creating a vision for the coming year around the work of CAB and some very specific strategies. And I want to put that out again and really encourage everyone to think about sooner rather than later committing to doing that. We really had some challenges in the past year in getting that scheduled and on the books. So I want to ask everyone just how soon they think they can get that space in their agenda. Now, whether we feel that we have to end up doing it on a traditional meeting night so as to make it more amenable to people's schedules, or if we can look at doing it on maybe a Saturday morning for a couple of hours. But I think it's really critical that we come together and discuss the future of how the board is going to operate and increase its engagement.
I can't do Saturdays.
That makes absolute sense. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. That makes sense. So, maybe we look at an evening, a couple of consecutive evenings, if that's possible. But we need commitment to having a quorum and really having people show up prepared to engage. Yes.
Or even Sundays on certain.
Mhm.
But, yeah, any time that we decide on. I will try to make that happen. I will do my best, whatever we end up deciding.
Okay. Something else, we brought up last month the fact that a number of our board members need to renew their applications for membership. So I want to once again encourage everyone to get that done so that your eligibility does not expire. And when you do so, should you choose to continue in your position on the board, please reach out to your council member's office. Let the staff know that you have the desire and the intention to continue with the board, and do that as soon as possible, please, so that we don't have lapsed seats on the board.
It is. If I could jump in.
Certainly.
Yes. Every year, December 31st, the terms expire. And so January 1st, it's a whole new year. We also have elections during that period of time. So I tell everybody, put your application in, make sure it's gonna be there. And usually what happens from the council office is the council office, and according to the municipal code, allows for members to remain in place until they have recommended a new person for your position, if you desire to, not continue on. So it's so important what the chair says is get with your city council member and let him or her know that you want to continue on. The term of commitment usually is for 8 years, 1 year at a time. 1 year at a time. If you want to do 8, you can do 8. I look around and Bob and Norma, I think, and also Pastor Hodges over here have been here for some time. And so with the president, about 5, same thing, Bob. So with the present administration, at 8 years, they're rotating you out. And so just to let you know that, okay, y'all not close yet, but they're rotating you out. And again, if the council member decides and he wants to place someone else in your seat, then again, we'll go for it. We are at 11 for 15. We're supposed to have 15 members here on the board. We are in fact missing, since I've been here for the last 4 years, we're missing probation. Probation says that they have no need to be here because of RIPA. And so, which the former council member, Murder Cole, tried to establish CAB. We're trying to convince probation that they do need to be here, because in most of the communities where probation goes into, and that's all communities, we get feedback from the community members as the relationship of probation goes. So they need to be here as well. So again, a long statement, but please make sure that you fill out your applications again, and if there's anything that you need any help with at all, which I know that you folks don't, then let me know. So definitely we can make sure that it happens. But again, if I call and say, hey, please fill out your application, please fill out your application. I don't want to hunt nobody down for an application, but again, it is good to have each one of you here. And so I think that we're going to do some big things. But I would also say, Madam Chair, that for us not to take for granted that we have the executive police chief. We also have access to the police chief. We also have access to all the rest of the captains that are there when something goes awry or even good in your community, to reach out to them to let them know, and let your council member know. Because oftentimes we're dealing with the bad, and that comes in like a hurricane. And so just to let you know.
Thank you for that, Executive Director Brown. So just want to bring to everyone's attention that the current vacant seats on the board are District 9. So, okay, District 9, the Human Relations seat, the Police Employees seat, and the Probation seat. So if anyone who is observing the meeting or who currently sits on the board has relationships with people who represent these stakeholder groups or that particular city council district, who might be interested in joining us in doing this work and might have some innovative strategies and ideas they want to bring to play around the issue of police and community relations, we invite you to submit an application and join with us in doing this work. We are always looking for fresh energy and new voices to be a part of the conversations. So like I said, human relations, police employees, it has recently come to our attention that our representative, Jared Wilson, who was with PAO, was not properly seated in his role on the board. And so that is being addressed currently. So
That Jack's position.
Yes.
So it wasn't.
It needs to go to city council to replace him. They just replaced him without going to city council. So it's a formality to go to city council and bless him.
So he may come back to us as representative. We have appreciated and enjoyed working with him. Up to this time, he has been very forthright in his opinions and engaging in the work with us, and we do appreciate that. Like I said, if anyone out there has a connection to the probation department, leadership in particular, we invite you to connect them to us so that we can beseech them to get involved. Probation, as Executive Director Brown stated, is always going to be present in our community, and it is related to matters of public safety. It is related to matters of avoiding recidivism, and creating relationships wherein people are providing ongoing integrity for the community. And we want to be very mindful of how we build and maintain relations with our returning community members. They are an important and valid part of our community. And so probation does need to be at the table and part of the conversation. And that is all I have at this time as part of my chair report. We were going to have an agenda item this evening to speak about school policing procedures and the intersection with issues of student mental health. We are not able to have that conversation this evening. We will look at bringing it back onto the agenda for January. And we really do look forward to having that conversation because we know that student mental health and understanding the public safety components of school policing are critical in this day and age. And our representative, Norma Sandoval, who works in both the education and youth advocacy space, is really motivated to bring this conversation to the table for our community and the board. And so we look forward to having that conversation in January. Does anyone in the board have anything they would like to bring to the floor at this time? All right, Executive Director.
Just real quick for my executive director report. As many of you have served as interim executive director of the Human Relations Commission, I will be coming off of that position next month or by the first of the year for sure. I just wanted to report that they had if you hadn't seen it on television, on the news, they had an awesome news conference dealing with San Diego United Against Hate. We had a partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the district attorney, as well as several other organizations to talk about hate. And I know that we are 3% down, but if we take a look at the rest of the nation, they're still fighting the issue of hate all over France. My Jewish brothers and sisters and Rabbi Noah are still up under the gun. Muslims, brothers and sisters are still up under the gun. And of course, African Americans are still leading for more than 50% across the nation. Our Latino brothers and sisters are still going through. One of the big issues, I know the chief talked about it earlier about reporting hate, is that 14 minutes, they're gonna turn off everything. So let me talk quick. Many people are not reporting hate. So one of the biggest things that they're working on now is a reporting mechanism after folks who report hate. You know, some people might call 211 to report it. Others, of course, because of where they lived and their experiences, won't call 911 to get to that trauma stage of someone actually getting hurt or killed. And so many institutions out there now, between here in Sacramento, are looking at how to effectively give people the reach so that they can call and report hate crimes. Because the belief is that hate crimes are underreported. They're underreported because folks are frightened, you know, and then you report a hate crime and the next thing you know, somebody's coming again, to knock on you. Recently, we had a person that was on the commission that, because of the area that she works in, she had been threatened. And you go out and you get a TR, it's a TRO, temporary restraining order. But that's a piece of paper, and it doesn't do a whole lot. And then our folks in law enforcement, while they can talk to the person and everything else, they can't really make contact until that person does something, that's out of the way. That's been the usual thing. I don't know if that's still the thing, Chief, that law enforcement can't make contact until that person has violated their TRMO. And so all those things are going on. We were able to connect the person on there with the FBI. The person already talked to the San Diego Police Department, but that is still something that's very prevalent in our community. And so even though I'm going to be leaving as the interim for Human Relations, I will stay on the California Human Relations Board as well. And so I'll continue to have those stats and able to get in contact with folks. We have a person by the name that was just appointed to the Human Relations Hate Crime Study, Professor Brian Levy, who travels throughout the country talking about hate crimes. He visits the White House, he updates them as well on hate crimes. And so if the board would like, at some point along the line in the first quarter, I can bring Professor Levy in, who was also one of the speakers the other day. So I just wanted to make you aware that is still going on. We are still, partnering with San Diego Police Department, FBI, DA, and all those other agencies to try to make a difference in actually getting out there and seeing what is actually going on in certain communities. We don't have one. Is anyone here from District 7? Okay, our Asian brothers and sisters have suffered a lot over the last year or so. And so as we take a look at, folks coming to the board and everything like that, we should take a look at how do we bring somebody in that has connections with the Asian community to support their interactions with law enforcement. I know of a few people, but we need to make sure that we're doing it. And how do we build positive relationships with communities so communities are not afraid to come in and have that conversation? So that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Brown. All right, one thing that I forgot to bring up during my chair's report, and please let me know if it's out of order is that better? To discuss this at this time is that I presented a letter for approval by the board regarding recommendations to the city's director of boards and commissions. And we tabled it so that everyone would have a better opportunity to review it before the vote. I presented this in July. I'm looking at the date on the letter is July 22nd. Are we able to move forward with approving it at this time?
No, ma'am.
Violate the Brown Act. It's got to be on the agenda. As an action item.
Okay. All right, so I'm being told that we cannot approve it yet again this month. Can we please get it on the agenda for next month so that we can, for the new year, for December, I'm sorry, January, so that we can, for the new year, get this communication over to the director's office. So we were going to push it once again. All right. At this time, seeing no further need for comment from board members, I'm gonna call the meeting to be adjourned at 7:37 p.m. and thank everyone for joining us. Encourage everyone to have a wonderful holiday season in whichever way they celebrate or observe, and be safe and enjoy your time with friends, family, and community. Thank you for joining us.
Feels great to be back.
Thank you.